We're going to start with the idea of a statement. We're going to look at a definition for a statement and look at several examples. So as we start with our definition, you want to remember that a statement is defined to be a sentence which can be either true or false. Sometimes for students it's helpful to have a list of things that are not statements. So as you see on the screen, we have questions. Questions are never statements. And those are easy to pick out because of the question mark. We have opinions. Opinions are never statements. So that would be something like me saying, this is the best restaurant. Well, that's my opinion. That is not a statement. We have commands. Commands are not statements. So if I tell you, study for your test, that's a command. That is not considered to be a statement in terms of logic. And the last two, we have nonsense statements. These are things that don't make any sense. And we have what's called a paradox. Paradoxes are never statements. And a paradox is usually kind of a circular way of thinking. Maybe when you read it the first time, you think it makes sense, but as you stop and think about it, you realize that it doesn't really make sense. And so we'll look at some examples as we get there. So all we want to be able to do here is answer yes or no on these questions. Are they statements or not? So the first one says, Bill Nye holds a doctoral degree in science. So remember, in order to be a statement, it has to be a sentence. Okay, and this is definitely a sentence. And it has to either be true or false. And it doesn't matter which one, right? So I could go look this up on Google and see whether or not Bill Nye holds a doctoral degree in science. Either he does or he doesn't. So this statement is either true or it's false, right? So this is a statement. And again, I'm going to jot down why. It is a statement because it's a sentence. And it's either true or false. All right, the next one says the end is just the beginning. This is not a statement. This is an example of what we refer to as a paradox. And remember what I said earlier, a paradox is sort of a circular type thinking, whereas we read it the first time, the end is just the beginning, and it kind of makes sense, but as we stop and think about it, it's sort of a confusing statement. We don't really understand exactly what it's saying. So a paradox is not considered to be a statement. The next one says red letter, yellow letter. This is not a statement. This is a nonsense phrase. It doesn't make any sense. If I ask you a question or I'm talking to you and you tell me red letter, yellow letter, I'm going to be asking you what you mean by that because that doesn't make any sense to me. So it is not a statement. The next one says the last digit of every even number is 0. All right, this is a sentence. Now I want to consider whether it has a true or false value to it. So I don't think that this is actually a true statement because if I take the even number, for example, 22, 22 is even and it doesn't end in a 0. So this is not true. But remember, a statement can be true or false. All right, so I'm going to say yes on this one. This one is a statement. It's a statement because it's a sentence. That is false. And this is one thing that students have a hard time with because they think that if it is a statement, it needs to be true. It doesn't. It can be a statement and be false. As long as it's a sentence and it has a definite false value, then it is considered to be a statement. The next one, 2 plus 7 is equal to 9. That is also a statement. It is a sentence. not in terms of what you would see in an English class, but in a math class, we consider this equation to be a sentence. And it has a true or false value. In this particular case, 2 plus 7 is equal to 9, and so it has a true value. So it meets the conditions to be considered a statement. Let's look at a few more. Would you like to dance? All right, that is not a statement because remember that we're not allowed to have questions. So if you can remember that questions are never statements, then that one becomes fairly easy. 10 minus 3 is equal to 12. That is a sentence in terms of a math class. It has a false value because 10 minus 3 is not equal to 12. And so it meets the conditions to be a statement. Remember, to be a statement, it has to be a sentence that's either true or false. The next one says you can save money by spending it. This, again, is a paradox, right? Again, when you read it the first time, you might think it makes sense, but as you stop and think about it, you can save money by spending it. That doesn't really make sense. And so this is not a statement because it is a paradox. The next one says there's no way they can lose now. So we might hear this, for example, at the ball field when we're watching a baseball game. And maybe one team has quite a few points, and we hear somebody in the stand say, there's no way they can lose now. This is not a statement because it is someone's opinion. And remember that opinions are not statements. And then the last one, spiders are animals. This is a statement. It is a sentence that is either true or false. And again, you could look it up and you could say, hey, that's true or that's false. But either way, it is a sentence, and so it qualifies as a statement. So again, the easiest way to do this is to probably be familiar with the exceptions. Watch for the questions, the opinions, the commands, the nonsense, and the paradox, and eliminate those as statements. And then you can look at what's left. And as long as it's considered a sentence, where it has either a true or a false value to it, then we can go ahead and say that that's a statement.